yarn lovers, it's Gary and I'm coming to you from my living room here on Vancouver Island in Canada. So welcome. Today is Friday, October the 14th, 2022, and this is video number 159. How are you all doing? I hope you're well and staying safe. I usually film upstairs in the yarn room, but my light bulb blew and I don't have a replacement, so I had to lug everything down and set her up here and start all over again. I do apologize. I'm filming in the evening. Normally I do it in the daylight so that you can see colors in yarn a bit better and stitch definition, but I really wanted to post for tomorrow, and the only chance I'm going to get to film is this evening, because tomorrow's a very special day and I hope that you'll join in and celebrate with me, because for us here on Urban Yarn, we're celebrating our 3rd year here on YouTube. So it's a bit of a podiversary and a bit of a celebration. In true tradition, I have bought a decadent cake from my favorite bakery here called Hot Chocolates. It's well known in the Comox Valley and it feeds enough of 8 people, I think. It's quite a large circular chocolate cake and it's only me and hubby. So if you're in the area, drop in and have a piece of chocolate cake. It'll be first come, first serve basis. And I will show the cake in the end of the video, along with talking about all the things that I have gotten up to in the community of recent, maybe a week or two that's gone by. And I have some fun questions to ask you as well in that section, and also some stories to tell. So let's crack on with the finished objects first. And it's what I'm wearing. I don't know whether you can see it in this lighting, but it is my 2-color rib slip stitch. It's a 1x1 rib slip stitch sweater, and it's raglan style. I've worked it up from the top down. I did a tubular, I guess it's like a tubular ribbing. Started off with a provisional cast on, which I forgot that I lost all memory of that word or that term in one of my previous videos, and I had a little bit chuckle reading the comments about how some people were like saying, hey, it's called a provisional cast on. So yeah, I did a tubular ribbing here. I used a 3.75 set of Chagu stainless steel needles to get that nice tight kind of ribbing structure, and I knew that it had a bit of stretch to it, so I thought I'm gonna go smaller on the needles. There was a number of stitches here, and then I collected the second color in the mix and I began to do my slip stitching in the 1x1 ribbing, and I passed my floats in the back. Now I learned how to do this technique through Tinker Knit's website, and I'll include it down below. So if you're interested in learning how to do the slip stitching with the passing the float in the back or the front and see what the texture looks like, that would be a great place to start. And this is what it looks like when it's passed in the back. So you get to see it's almost like a grid formation, and in the inside you got the floats. I used a 5mm set of knitting needles for the body, because with the floats and carrying them in the back, sometimes if your tension's off, you can actually get a little bit of sucking in of your fabric. And so I wanted to be nice and loose and kind of flexible, so I went up a couple of sizes in needles, and I did it on a 5mm set of knitting needles. Now I worked it in the round with the yoke and all of the raglan increases, and then I split for my sleeves, continued on with the tube, leaving the 2 holes, and I've got a little bit of a history of this garment. So what I might do is, if I can find where I got the yarn from, because I did frog another sweater and I used the yarn in this one, and I might do a little collage of where it came from and all the way through to the end. But let me just get up and show you what it looks like. And I do have some photographs of hubby showcasing it as well, modeling it for me in daylight, so you can get a better sense of the colors and how the patterning works up. But here it is here. It has been washed. There's a bit of a story with the washing as well. Sorry, I'm not in frame. I just moved the chair. There we go. It's a good length. It comes below my belt line and it's got good kind of, you know, sort of armholes. They're not too saggy and it's very, very comfortable and warm. I love the squishy factor because you are layering up that float as well as getting the ribbing texture as well. So it's nice and squishy. And here are some of the photos that I'd love to share with you. If I found the clip of me unraveling the past sweater, this is what it was made out of, and it is Lion Brand's Comfy Cotton in the colorway Driftwood. As you can tell, it is a beige with a transitional thread that runs through it, and it goes through turquoise, teal, and a little bit of darker greens. And I liked the way that it was subtle, but it was just a little bit too pale for my complexion. And I wanted to punch it out, as you can tell, with a brighter color. So I chose this turquoise color here, and it's from Brown Sheep Company. The collection's called Serendipity Tweed, and the colorway is called Raindrop. As you can tell, it is a little bit of a marl itself. So it has a stronger turquoise and then more of a paler turquoise thread that marls and creates this lovely texture in the fabric. One word of caution, I loved working with it, but I don't know whether it was my dye line or just this color, but when I soaked this to block the sweater, a lot of turquoise came out and it actually turned the water quite blue. Where this was brown, now has a tint of blue to it. So just a word of caution if you are using this, maybe when you're doing your swatch testing, throw the swatch into water to see what happens to the color that you are using. If there's any bleeding, then perhaps maybe you could soak your yarn before adding it to color work. And I think that might actually save the project if you are thinking of doing a long-term or larger project that you want the colors to stay vibrant and see the graph that you're creating in the color work. Okay, the next project that's finished came off my needles about a week ago. I did block it and it grew. Now, the pattern did suggest that it would be 8 feet long, but I did a number of extra repeats in the pattern and it is now a whopping 10 feet long. But you did see some of it. I think it was almost half done. This is the Starlight wrap by Erin Kurup. Now I'll spell the last name because I probably am pronouncing it wrong. K-U-R-U-P, and I will link the pattern down below. Some modifications were done to this because of my understanding of the pattern and yarn. It was quite difficult to do one of the stitches with the yarn choice that I made. It wasn't, the yarn choice that I had chosen was a cotton and it didn't have any elasticity to it. So if you're thinking of doing this pattern, I would suggest maybe using something that has a bit of give to it so you can really work your needles around several numbers of stitches at the one time. So what I had changed up was this section here. There was a beautiful stitchwork design of little sparks that go across, almost like electricity. I changed them out to have garter as well as some eyelets here. So this whole section here was different from the pattern. These sections here with the lace work showing the eyelets in rows that are more lateral, like going across the scarf width, they are from the pattern. I absolutely love them. And then we get into all these green colors here towards the opposite end. Now I have some photographs of hubby modeling this in daylight because you don't really get to see the true, I guess the true colors right now with the electric light, but I'll add them in here and come back and talk to you about the needle sizes and the yarn choices that I made. The yarn that I used in the Sparklight wrap was a wonderful gift that was graciously sent to me by a yarny friend who would like to remain anonymous. You know who you are. Thank you so much. I love this yarn. It is from Shipji's. I can't say that word. And it is a mini set of 100% cotton. And there are a number of colorways in the set ranging, as you can tell, from the blue colors all the way to more of a green. I won't read out all the colorway names, but what I will do if you're interested is I'll add the names down below in the description box. It is from a series called Sky's Light by Shipji's, and each of the colorway names are named after something to do with the sky, whether they're clouds or whether they are spheres in the different layers above our head in the sky. Accompanying that was a full skein in the garter section that I did in each of the diagonal, I guess, striping, was a full skein of Knit Picks Hawthorn Fingering Weight, and it is in the colorway Lent. I loved working with this. I don't really have any rhyme or reason when it comes to mixing my fibers. So I have cotton, sometimes I mix it with wool. Sometimes I really like the idea of color being the factor of joining my projects together rather than weight, or if it has a different fiber quality. Just the care instructions need to be adhered to for the most delicate of use or care instructions. So if one says to hand wash and other are acrylic that don't need hand washing, I would hand wash it because I would gear more towards the more sensitive style of care instructions for the whole piece. So yeah, really liked it. It is a paid for knit pattern, and I'll link it down below if you're interested to go along and find out more about it. Moving right along to my works in progress. And the first one is the festive dragon wrap here. And in my previous podcast, I showed maybe 2 rows of it as I was just making the foundation of it. And now it is almost done. It's around 8 feet long, a little longer than my 6-foot one that I did when my mum was in town in August. I did a gold, turquoise, and beige. And this one, I used the colors that were inspiration point from Setter's calendar cow for the month of June. And we were celebrating the podcast called Yarn Joy Podcast. And in the photograph that was submitted, there were lavenders in a wonderful field of green grass. And at the top of the photograph was a sandy pathway. So I think these colors really kind of resemble that photograph. So there's a bit of lavender in here. There's also some of the green, and in a stretch, I know it's like yellow sand, but this one is more of the weathered gray and blue cold sand colorway. But really love the texture that's coming out. Now, I've been working this up and writing some notes to share with my friends who want to make this. And I want to just say that it has been a interesting exercise. As you can see, all of these instructions are just for the chevron part, but I figured out that it's too difficult for me to explain how I work the rows. Like I am using 2 colors for the chevron part, and I don't cut my yarn. I try and make it as easy as possible for myself, which means describing how I'm working some rows twice over each other, so it's wrong side, or a right side, it's so difficult for me to explain because I'm not a pattern writer. So I'm going to try and make it so I cut the yarn and always start the same way, like the opposing way, I should say. So it's always going to be right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side. And that will be a lot easier than having to have pages of instructions. And this is by no means a pattern that will be published for purchase. It's just for me to share with my friends, and there's a lot of fudging going on. So it's not a design that is divided up into equal math. Sometimes I have to cheat and skip over a couple of chains or stitches to make it balance up at the end of the row. So some fudging goes on, and my friends are welcome to fudge when they're working with it as well. If they find some fudges that they can add in themselves, that would be okay. So yeah, I'm going to be releasing it to my friends, but it's not going to be tested. It's just going to be a fun project and nothing serious. Next up in my whips is a scarf that I cranked up on my AliExpress knitting machine. It's almost done. It's at the proper length. I just need to close off the ends. And I used healthy size scraps of yarn, cutting them 30 rows in and making little chunks of colors, switching up the yarn, adding it back in to create these kind of, I guess, blocks of different yarn fields. And I really love it. Now, I didn't look to see what the yarn content was. Some of them may be slightly with wool, others just 100% acrylic. And the yarn size as well was a varying yarn size of thicknesses. So the first one here that I'll showcase is Premier's Spun Colors in the colorway Agate. And that's these ones here. Then I chose that's a 4-weight yarn. And then I chose a greenish colorway here, and that is Lion Brand's Ferris Wheel in the colorway Imaginary Garden. So that's the cake that was left, and I had enough to do a couple of those 30 row panels. And then up here it goes into more of a turquoisey color, blue, and that is a 3-weight yarn. I believe it's fallen somewhere. Oh, here it is here. It's called Premier's Coffee Shop in the colorway turquoise. So I really like how they all turned out together, and I'll put it on. I'm gonna be toasty warm, aren't I? It's around, I don't know, maybe 5.5 to slightly 6 feet. I'm knocking the table, sorry about that. Oh yeah, it's nice and warm here. Next up is a whip that I've fallen way behind on. It is Stephen West MKAL for 2022 called Twists and Turns. Now, if you don't know who Stephen West is, I'm going to include a link down below to the make-along, so it'll be the introduction. Now, we are in clue 2 already, and I am not even halfway through clue 1, so I'm probably safe to say that my week or my 2 weeks will be everyone else's 1 week. This weekend that passed, when the clue came out on October the 6th, I didn't get going on this project until after Thanksgiving here, which was the October I think it was like the 8th, 9th. So maybe the 10th, I started working on this piece. And it is called the Twists and Turns. Now, there's fair warning here. If you don't want to have any spoil on the make, please turn away. I can show you and talk to you about the yarn that I used, but if you are making the cowl or interested in making the Knitalong, then look away if you don't want any spoilers. So the yarn that I'm working with right now, my yarn A and yarn B, is my yarn A is this one here, and it is called Bayswater. It's by Yorkshire Spinners, and it's this beautiful teal almost petrol blue color. Excuse me. And my yarn B is this one here, which is Mad Tosh in the colorway Herbology, and that's got more of the jades and a little bit of more of a yellowish tinge running through it. So those are my two, A and B. Now, please look away if you don't want to see the pattern. I'm going to show you what I've done so far. I am not complete on the first clue, but here it is, and this is what I have. Okay, it's very interesting. It started off very interesting as well without giving too much away. It doesn't start as a regular cast on. It does have an interesting start, but I love the way that the chevron bits are connecting and then are also bound off in some sections. There is a little bit of a fun twist to it. I've already seen what happens towards the end because I've got the pattern and I've read through it and also watched a little bit of the video tutorials, and I'm learning so much, like casting on, casting off, mid-row, taking a whole bunch of time to get through the repeats. The chevrons are written out so that you only have to read, I think there's 12 rows. Oh, yeah, there's probably about 12 rows. And then you just repeat the 12 rows over and over again until it reaches a certain length. And I am only halfway. So each repeat takes me around 2 hours and 15 minutes. And so I get maybe one, if I'm lucky, two done in the evening, if I'm watching extended movies or staying up late. So yeah, this is what I have so far. And my two colors, A and B, are contrasting very nicely. Also, the third color isn't being used yet. And my third color, which is the pop of color, is this one here from Knit Crate. It's called Vitalana, and I believe it's called, the colorway is Walking Dead. So it's my highlighter green, and it does variegate from a more intense highlighter green and a more lighter highlighter green. So there's some tonal variation in that one. The needles that I'm using is a Chagu, and I believe they're 3.5 millimeters in the pattern. I'm yet to use the cable needle, so I'm not sure when that's going to come in. I did see clue 2 for a little flash, but I didn't really go into it too much. I'm loving seeing all of the color choices that are coming up in Instagram and also on YouTube as well. So I'm eager to keep going. I am going to be taking double the amount of time than everyone else because I am quite a slow knitter with new things that I've never done before, and I'm really enjoying it. So keep going if you are starting as well and finding everything is brand new to you. You know, whether the instructions are new or you've never learned the acronyms before, YouTube them or go to Stephen West's tutorials, because he does actually help you out along each of the stages of clue 1. And yeah, so I think he's a great teacher. That concludes all of the things that I got to talk about in the yarny aspect of things on this podcast. I'm going to shift gears. So if you're just interested in sticking around for all the yarn talk, I want to say thank you for spending time with me. And I know that you've got to get on with your busy day, so I'll catch you up in the next episode. But for those who want to stick around and learn a little bit about what I've been up to in the community, then please join along. I'm going to be turning the time back to when my friends were here from Holland. And that was about 3.5 weekends ago, three and a half weeks ago, I should say. They stayed for, I believe, 3 nights, and we did the hike up in Mount Washington, which I've already covered, but there was another outing that we went to that we found and discovered something very interesting, an anomaly washed up on the ocean. And we were in Seal Bay, which part of it is called the Air Force Beach, I believe. I'm not sure, but it's shared with the military. And there was this interesting box that washed up. It was quite a large box. I'm going to say 12 feet long by 5 and 5. So it was a heavy wooden box coated in some type of waxy filament, and it floated. But as soon as we tried to roll it over to read if there were any markings on it in a different language to discover the origins, we couldn't even lift it. It was only being buoyant in the water, and from what we could see, the exposed side, there was no writing. There were lots of barnacles and things growing on it and debris, but yeah, there was no other indication of where this box had come from. So I'm putting it out there, and I'll show it at the end of the video on what you think it might be. I don't know. I don't have any nautical experience or maritime experience. Perhaps maybe it's a weight in a pulley system on a ship, or it's cargo that's fallen off the boat and has washed up on shore. I'm not too sure, but it had been out there in the ocean for some time because there was a lot of things attached to it. Moving forward in time, and 2 weekends ago, we were in a place called Duncan. We went there because a close friend of mine had just moved to the island and bought a property with his partner, and we went down to celebrate a very important milestone birthday for him. I'm super stoked that a close friend of mine now lives 2 hours away and not 8 hours, including driving in a car, ferry ride, and then another car ride away from me to visit. I'll see him more often now. We used to live together and room together to put our funding towards the very expensive rentals in Vancouver when I first moved to Canada and lived in Vancouver. So I've known him for a very, very long time, and we had so much fun. He's made such a great move in his life, and he's enjoying like the more open space, and the property that he purchased is amazing, and he's got some great ideas for it. So we talked about those, and we celebrated singing songs and having a bit of a dance off. It was great. So kudos to him. And just last weekend, we celebrated Thanksgiving. Chad and I went to the family cabin by the lake, and we spent time with his parents, which is always delightful, and an aunt and uncle as well. We cleaned up all of the property debris and made sure that everything was safe for fire hazards. And we brought everything down to the beach and had a bonfire to clean it all up. And it was a beautiful time. So I've got some footage of that as well. We had some cheese and crackers on the dock at sunset. It was very romantic and a very nice time with family. So that brings me to what I've been watching on TV, and I have some suggestions as well. While I've been working on the Stephen West item that I just showed you, we were watching a mini series called Dropout. So that is based on a true story. I think there's probably around 8 episodes in the whole mini series, and it is featured on Disney Plus for us in Canada. I'm not sure whether that's the same in the States or other parts of the world. So the main actress is Amanda Seyfried, and she is depicting she's kind of like infamous right now. Her name is Elizabeth Merriweather, and it's about a story of Elizabeth Merriweather and how she starts off as an over-ambitious student in a university, and she drops out to put all of her funding that her parents have saved for her education into a company. The idea behind the company is almost almost, I would say, brilliant and ingenious, because she gets so many backers, she gets financing, she talks the leg off her chair basically, and convinces everyone to like fall for this idea. It is an interesting story, and if you do try it and you don't feel that you're getting involved in the first couple of episodes, then I would say, you know, the pace is pretty much the same all the way through. You could try one or two and see how it goes. And with that, I think that catches you up on everything. I am now going to show the wonderful cake and the footage from both the interesting thing that washed up on the ocean and the bonfire Thanksgiving weekend, as well as my wonderful delicious chocolate cake. So come on by and stop in and share a piece of chocolate cake with us. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.